on the YouTube channel, and then we'll share it out again. Thanks so much. We're here today with AltaLink, and AltaLink is going to talk about farm safety. And then at the end of it, they're also going to let you know about the contest that you can enter in and then win some awesome prizes. So I'll leave that up to AltaLink. But let me introduce Mark, who is your presenter today. And Mark, you can say a few words about yourself. And then we have Aurora, and Aurora is my key contact over at AltaLink. And they're amazing partners. You guys know we've had a partnership with them for many, many, many years. Big supporters, actually, exclusive supporters of the communications competition. And so we really appreciate all they do. And we thought, well, the next step we can actually take here is get them to talk a little bit about farm safety. So I'll hand it over to Mark.
Bianca, I'll jump in as Mark and I will actually be co-presenting today. So
even better.
Even better. Thanks. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for the warm welcome, Bianca. Really happy to be here today. We love having our partnership with 4-H, and it's always really fun getting to watch the speeches and the presentations at the big competition in April. We're really looking forward to doing that again this year. As Bianca mentioned, we are here to talk about farm safety, but not just any farm safety, staying safe around power lines. So, as Bianca mentioned, this session is going to be recorded. You can refer back to it and everything will be emailed out to you afterwards. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll answer them in the chat if possible. I've got a lot of screens going on, so forgive me if I miss anything, or we'll answer them at the end for sure. And anyway, Mark, I will let you introduce yourself, and then I will do a better job of introducing myself. I can't hear you, Mark. Nothing. Nope, nothing. All right, well, while Mark is figuring out his system, I guess I'll start out. So my name is Aurora. I am a communications advisor at AltaLink, which means that I write a bunch of stuff and I write about writing. I know that doesn't sound super exciting, but it is actually a pretty fun job. So if anybody likes writing, communications, especially if you're in this program, might be for you. I've been at AltaLink for a little over 4 years, and I've learned so much about electricity. I'm definitely not a scientist, so it's been pretty cool to learn about everything. And everybody here is pretty nice. So, Mark, how are we doing? Nothing. Please forgive us for the technical difficulties. Your headset, it was working when your headset was on, so I don't know if maybe you need to like hop off and come back on or something. All right, I think I can't read lips, but I think you said you're going to do that. So, all right. Well, we're going to carry on a little bit. We'll let Mark jump in and introduce himself. But Mark is one of our safety advisors, so he makes sure that everybody does things in a way that is safe so that nobody gets hurt. And he's a pretty great, pretty nice guy. So we'll hear more from him later. Who is AltaLink? So we transmit power. So we transport power and electricity that you use every day, and we do that to most of the province. So that's about 85% or about 3 million Albertans we help get electricity to. We're dedicated to making sure that as things change in the world and there's more need for electricity, that we can make sure that that electricity keeps getting to everyone in a safe and reliable way. So we're gonna do a little icebreaker just to kind of start things off. So we use electronics every single day, from the time our alarm goes off in the morning to when we turn out the light before we go to sleep. Some of them are helpful, like your refrigerator or a space heater. Some of them help us learn and stay connected to our friends and family. That be something like a phone or your laptop or a tablet. And some of them are just for fun, like a TV or an Xbox One or something like that. Um, yes, I saw some happy reactions to that. I know Xboxes are pretty cool. So think about all of the electronic devices you use every day. Which one's your favorite and why is it your favorite? Pop that into the chat and let us know what your favorite electronics are. I know for me, I really love music. So I really love having a speaker so I can listen to music, and I like being able to charge my headphones so that when I'm, going for walks, I can still hear music. And I also really like video games too. So I don't have an Xbox One, but if I did, it'd be up there. All right, and I see some other folks in here.
I like
Definitely say,
headphones too, but mine weren't
hey,
working. Am I back?
you are back, Mark. What's your favorite electronic?
I think actually it's a guitar, my electric
Hey,
guitar. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. All right, we can hear you, but we can't see you. So if something happens, oh, there you are. Hey, we officially have
everything's
Mark.
working. Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, no, all good. Mark, do you want to say a couple words about yourself just to introduce yourself while everybody else is answering? And
You betcha. Thanks, Aurora. So I'm Mark Bravins. I'm a safety advisor with AltaLink, and I've had the pleasure of working here for just over 17 years. So my early years, I kind of ran around to all the 4-H camps and did this similar type of presentation on electrical safety. And so thanks, Aurora, for inviting me back to bring this up into the 2020s. So yeah,
no, happy to
looking
have
forward
you.
to this.
Oh,
Appreciate the experience. Thanks.
awesome. Oh, all right. So what else do we have? So we've got another vote for electric guitar for you there, Mark. So that's good. Tablet, Chromebook, Xbox 360. Yep, I agree with that one. I've got one of those. Tea kettle. You know what? I love that. Can't go wrong with having nice hot water for tea. And toaster, that's a good one too. I love toast. Phone or Chromebook. Lights. Yep, absolutely. Would be kind of hard to see what I was doing today without those. And Nintendo Switch. Yeah, those are some great answers. So thank you everybody for joining in with that.
My favorite electronic is my watch.
Your watch, that's a good one.
I got it for Christmas.
Cool. Well, that's a good gift.
My favorite is Wetchwick piano.
Ah, another musician. That is very cool. Amazing.
My favorite electronic is my alarm clock or my phone, because they both wake me up and one of them play with music.
This is fair. I haven't met a lot of people who like their alarm clock, but I think that's pretty cool.
I
All
used
right.
to play electric guitar as well.
Up your hand.
I like my tablet.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, absolutely, Mark. You got it. All right, so we're gonna move on. So let's move on and talk about a little bit of background about what electricity actually is. So I mentioned that AltaLink's an electricity transmission company. So what does that actually mean? So basically, transmission lines have large conductors or wires that carry power. That electricity comes from places that are from generators, and that can be stuff like a gas power plant or a solar farm, a wind farm, that kind of stuff. And so that electricity, once it's made, moves along the wires to places called substations, which are distribution points. And they come in at a very high voltage. So remember that word. We're going to talk a little bit more about what a volt is later. Voltage from the transmission line, the wire, is then reduced. It's made smaller and safer at the substation, which is from there it goes out to distribution lines, which are much smaller power lines that you probably would see a lot more often. And that is what's connected to your home.
You said sub what?
Substation.
Substation?
Yeah. So yeah, so that's a place where the electricity is taken from a really big voltage and made into a really small voltage, or the other way around. I guess think of it like a road. Transmission lines are like highways, so they allow more traffic or electricity to travel at higher speeds or voltages. Distribution lines are like roads in towns. They have less traffic that travel at lower speeds. So that's an easy way to remember it. So, all right. Then next up we have transmission structures. So you might have seen a lot of these, or you might have seen only a few of these, but if you see anything like this near where you live, it is part of the electricity system. So these are the structures that hold the wires that carry the electricity. Some of these are really, really gigantic, like stories and stories high, like, triple the size of your house, like just massive, really tall things. And those look like the ones that are on your left with that sort of lattice work where they're crossed like that. And then you get into the much smaller ones that you're more likely to see near your house. And those are basically like poles or like framed structures. Some of them are held into place by guy wires, which are supports that make sure that the structure stays secure. And remember guy wires, Mark's going to talk more about guy wires later on because they're pretty important to be aware of when it comes to staying safe. So next up, remember I said, remember the word volt. So what exactly is a volt or a kilovolt? So it's a unit of measurement for electricity. 1 kilovolt is 1,000 volts. Now, this is a lot of numbers, and I'm really not a math person, so we're going to break it down in a way that makes a little more sense. A AA battery, everybody's seen batteries. We use devices that use them every day. I've got one just at my desk right now. That is 1.5 volts. Now, the outlets that we use in our home where we actually plug things in, those are 120 volts. So it's quite a few batteries. Now, these are common ones that you'll see every day. But when we get into electricity transmission, those numbers get a lot bigger. How much bigger, you ask? Well, a lot bigger. Now, our transmission lines carry between 138 to 500 kilovolts. So that's 138,000 to 500,000 volts. Now, to give you an idea of how much that actually is, let's look at it using batteries again. So the number of AA batteries that it takes to make up 138 kilovolts is 92,000 batteries, 92,000 of these. Now, that's going to weigh about 2,100 kilograms. That's the average weight of an adult rhinoceros. So that's a lot of batteries that we're talking about here. So it's a lot of power and definitely something we want to be careful when we're around. So now, if I've done everything correctly, we're going to watch a very short little video where we talk about how electricity moves. So let's just see if I can make this work.
Electric current. Anything that relies on electricity won't work when something like a storm stops the electric current. What you may not know is that electric current is a flow of electrons. Yep, electrons. Those teeny tiny particles that orbit around an atom's nucleus. Here's how it works. Electrons jump from atom to atom. Then, with a material like copper wire acting as a conductor, these charge carriers go with the flow, creating an electric current. It's like a conga line of electrons. The electricity that flows through the wires in your home is an alternating current. That means it can reverse direction. A current from a battery goes in only one direction. That's called direct current. Whether it's AC or DC, the electric current is measured in amps. And the voltage is the pressure put behind the amps to make it higher or lower. Amazing what a little peer pressure among electrons can do when they flow in a current.
Right. So, yeah. Let me get that presentation back up 1 second here. Bearing with me. And we're back. So electricity, as that video mentioned, travels along paths called circuits. If a new pathway appears along that circuit, electricity will travel along it to try to complete the circuit. So pathways have to be conductive. So they're made out of metal, usually, or wood or water. And these things will move electricity through them. When something comes into contact with a power line, it creates a new circuit for electricity to travel through. So that's one of the reasons that we need to be really careful around power lines, because if something that we are using touches the power line, the electricity is going to want to move through whatever's touching the power line, because that's just what electricity does. It's trying to find its path along whatever is in contact with it. So that brings us to our next point. We have some true and false here. All right, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Aurora was saying metal can conduct, would you say that farm equipment, like some types of equipment like a combine, could conduct electricity? Is that true or false?
Go ahead and answer in the chat. All right. Send some good answers in there.
True. This is so cool. Yes, it is
Right
cool.
on. Perfect. And what about a grain silo? Does that conduct electricity? True or false? A grain silo, big metal grain silo, conducts electricity. Oh yeah, lots of correct answers in there.
Yeah. All right. Now, Aurora kind of alluded to this one. Does water from an irrigation system, would that conduct electricity, true or false? Yeah, you betcha.
Right on.
You guys have got it.
Nice. Yeah, you are absolutely nailing it. All right. And then our last question is, what about a tree? Does a tree conduct electricity? True or false? Now, this is kind of a trick question, because remember I was talking about what conducts electricity, and wood can conduct electricity. So what's a tree made of? All right, seems more. I'm seeing a little bit of a split on that one. Like I said, it's a trick question, but yes, somebody in
It
there
is true.
mentioned, yeah, somebody mentioned that it will light on fire, and yep, that's true actually. If a tree hits a power line, it could light on fire, so it could be very dangerous, and it does technically conduct electricity, so it's something that we want to be really careful with. All
Yeah,
right,
because Aurora, you know what helps a tree grow?
what helps a tree grow?
Water,
Hey,
right?
yep,
So moisture in the wood really helps
absolutely.
conduct electricity.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, now we're going to get into the actual interesting stuff where we're talking about safety. So Mark, take it away.
All right, so power lines and farms is the topic here. So we want to discuss some things that you should never be putting near power lines. Have you ever seen any of these near the power lines? hay or grain piles. Anybody seen that? Well, if you see that, that actually reduces the clearance, the distance between you and the power line. So it makes it a little bit more unsafe for you. The closer you get to a power line, the closer you are to the power. So you should never pile anything underneath the power line like hay or grain piles. How about granaries or silos? Anybody got a one person unmute and say why you shouldn't put a granary or silo near a power line? What did we say happens with metal?
Granary or silo is ever?
It would like just burn.
Well, it'll actually get hot, yes. And it also conducts electricity, which makes it very
It will
dangerous
get
for you.
hot and it will melt a little bit, and then the stuff inside will burn.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yes. And being a conductor of electricity makes it very unsafe. So the same thing would happen with bulk fuel. So let's keep a reminder to our neighbors and to our families that bulk fuel bins, they're metal, they're off the ground, and putting them underneath the power line can be quite dangerous. All right. What's next? So the power lines and farms, has anyone seen these structures around? Just raise a hand in your reactions if you've seen it. So earlier, Aurora mentioned that guy wires can be unsafe. So on this picture, you can see down near the bottom of the wires, there's an orange piece of plastic. And that orange piece of plastic is there to basically remind you that there's a guy wire there. And it also helps keep your hands away from the guy wire. So guy wires hold the structures straight up in the air. And in the past, we've had some issues with a little bit of that electricity trickling down those wires. So we've put in protective devices in those wires high up in the air where you can't reach them to help protect you on the ground. So always be aware for broken or loose guy wires, because that makes the situation really unsafe. So we want you to stay away from those. How about farm equipment? So you see on the left there, you've got a vintage piece of farm equipment. I still see one or two of those operating in the province, but over on the right, you look at the size of that new combine. So the size of equipment has increased quite substantially. So we've gotten wider. So our distances that we were used to going in and out of our accesses to our land has changed, especially if there's a structure nearby the roadway or the access. So also the equipment has gotten taller. So the lines haven't really changed in their height over the years, but the equipment sure has. So be mindful and be very observant when you're near a power line with powered equipment. Look for the height of the equipment and watch for any antennas that that equipment might have on it as well. So know how large the equipment is. And has anybody heard the commercials on the radio? How far should you stay away from a power line? Anybody heard that one? Has anybody heard to stay 7 meters safe before? That's the distance we want people to remain away from the power line. So some other things to know is keep vehicles at least 1 meter away from structures, whatever, whether they're wood or metal. And if you're ever digging a hole with a machine, stay at least 1 meter away from underground cables. So we want you to take some precautions around underground and above ground with electrical wires. How about power lines and plants? Anybody ever see trees growing along the power lines, along the roads? Be careful if you're ever pruning trees or brush near power lines. So remember we said that trees can conduct electricity. And if you ever got your hands up into a tree or got yourself up into a tree, pardon me, and climbed it, it brings you closer to the wire, which can also be dangerous as well. So only certain types of plants should be planted near power lines. Small, slow-growing plants. That's the tip we want to see. You can find examples on our website as well. So look at altalink.ca, and there's some other examples on there. So here's a picture of a typical right-of-way. So a right-of-way is basically the amount of ground from dead center of the power line stretching out each way across. So if you look at the photo here, it's a strip of land required for the construction and operation of the transmission line, and it refers to that physical space between each side of the trees. So any tree that makes contact with a line can lead to an interruption of power. So if the tree fell over and struck the line, it could break the line. Or we have devices that help prevent fires. So if a tree did strike the line, it'll create what we call a fault, and the line will trip out of service. So keeping the line clear means keeping the lights on and keeping everyone safe. So one of the key things that we do on right-of-ways, especially through the countryside, is a thing called vegetation management. And this is where we go out and we trim danger trees, they're called. And we also cut grass, shrubs. We do all kinds of different work around with vegetation management just to keep the power line safe and to keep anyone who's in those areas safe as well in case a tree ever did contact a power line. Power lines and irrigation. Remember, we said that water can conduct electricity. So never spray water hoses or irrigation pivots at power lines. There are three main factors to consider when you're working around transmission lines. And number one is going to be direct contact. So if you must handle irrigation equipment close to a line, power line or transmission line, take caution to never come near or touch the line or the facility. So in many irrigation systems, especially older ones, the aluminum pipes are used, and aluminum is especially conductive. It's a very good carrier of electricity. So if that comes into contact with the line, you could be seriously injured. So around spraying, so you see the sprays coming out of there, electricity will flow through many materials to make that path to ground. So one of those paths can be through water. If you enter the path to the ground, you could seriously harm yourself and any equipment you're using. So when you're using an irrigation system on your land, make sure you never get too close or make direct contact to the power line with the water stream. Use a flapper to break up the spray and help to not create a current. Another method is induction. Has anybody ever heard of that? So in rare circumstances, induction can occur where a piece of equipment you're using can be electrically charged. It doesn't even have to touch the system, but the electrons that are in the air will start to build up a charge, especially if you're right underneath the power line or tower. So ensure your irrigation system doesn't run parallel to a power line, because if you put two things in parallel, the energy wants to follow those lines together. So it can be induced voltage into the pipeline that's beside. So exercise caution when using any kind of equipment near transmission lines. Another problem we have in the province, severe weather. So we've had many storms through our province. I'm sure lots of you can think of some stories of some of the weather changes and the storms we've had. But storm and ice storms, wind and lightning, these can all damage our power lines. They can break poles, they can pull lines down, cause fires, et cetera, et cetera. So we just had some major damage happen in northern Alberta. Does anybody remember what happened in northern Alberta this summer? Does anybody remember all the forest fires?
Yes, it burnt to the
Yes.
ground.
So we had lots of forest fires and we had lots of lines get burnt. And then we also had heavy, heavy rain and we had flooding. So we had problems getting to our equipment, which made it dangerous for our workers to go and do the repairs they needed to do. And then in the middle of July, we had a huge snowstorm, which knocked out a whole bunch of power lines out west, north, kind of west part of the province. So lots of different weather can affect our power. So never go near or touch a damaged or down power line. Call emergency services, call your power company, or dial 310 WIRE. So 310 wire. So some power line safety tips. Number one, be aware. So know where overhead and underground power lines are before any type of work, whether you're driving underneath or whether you're going to do some digging. And if you're going to do digging, you can contact the utility safety partners. So they're the click before you dig people. So if you always remember click before you dig and you type that into your computer, you'll find the utility safety partners there. Or there's a phone number you can call, and we have that up on the screen right now, 1-800-242-3447. And you can also find that number when you type in click before you dig on their website.
Next up, the second of our top tips is to make sure that you are exercising caution. So that means that when you are doing work out in the field or near a power line, that you're looking up and you're making sure that nothing that you're using or yourself could come into contact with those power lines. And this is especially important when we're doing those, more dangerous activities where you could fall or something could tip over, like if you're using a ladder, or if, as Mark was talking about before, you're cutting a tree or a bush or something that might be closer to a power line. Of course, if you're operating or driving some farm equipment around, you want to make sure you know where you are and make sure that you are looking up above you so that you're clear of those power lines and you're not at risk of hitting them. And also if you're carrying long tools or pipes. So, if you are maybe doing some work on irrigation equipment, and you need to replace a pipe, and, people carry it over your shoulder, right? Make sure that you're looking up and you're not going to hit it. Or if you're carrying, some garden tools, or you're, carrying a ladder or something like that, just make sure that you know where the line is all the time so you don't hit anything.
Number 3 of our top 5 power line safety tips is to proceed with care. So look for fallen or sagging wires. So what we mean by sagging wires is if anyone's seen their mom hang clothes on a clothesline, and at one point the wire is nice and tight, but she hangs all the clothes and it starts to do a big sag in the middle, that's because of all the weight hanging on there. So fallen or sagging wires, be careful of those, and then stay away from downed power lines. And I'm thinking we're going to talk a little bit more about down power lines, right, Aurora?
I think we are. So as it so happens, our next big tip is to stay clear. Now, if you do see a power line that's come down, so remember what I showed you, we showed you earlier what the structures look like, and some of them are those big metal ones that kind of look like a lattice trellis, or they're all like crossed like that. Some of them, though, are just going to be those wooden poles. And if someone is driving and gets into a car accident and hits it, it could possibly damage the structure, or like those photos Mark was showing you earlier, after windstorms or heavy snow, if something happens and a structure breaks, those lines could come into contact with the ground, which means that the ground is also conducting electricity. So if you do see anything like that, stay away. Stay at least 10 meters away from any power line that has come down. The voltage gets higher the closer you get to where the line is touching the ground or an object. So the further away you get, the safer you are. So if you are out walking somewhere, or riding your bike or in a car, and you can feel a bit of a tingling sensation, you realize that you can see that there's a damaged power line, shuffle away to keep your feet in contact with the ground so that you're not completing that circuit, so you don't get an electrical shock. Mark, that video you showed me earlier, I couldn't get it to work, but it's kind of funny, but when you're if you're walking on carpet and you shuffle your feet so that you can give your sibling an electric shock, It's kind of silly, but that's what you want to do if you can feel tingling when you're walking around near a downed power line. So if you can feel that tingling, you just shuffle, make sure your feet stay on the ground and you are just kind of dragging them along with slow, short steps to get away from the power line to safety. And speaking of getting away to safety, what do you do if you're in a vehicle, Mark?
So if you are in a vehicle and a down power line is touching the vehicle, number one thing to do, if you're not in any other danger, stay put, stay in your vehicle. So if you have a cell phone or your parent has a cell phone, tell them to call for help and stay there until they come and tell you that it's safe. Tell them that you're in a vehicle and there's a power line on the car, and let them know you're okay. And then if anything does change, if it becomes unsafe, if a fire starts or smoke, or you're just unsure of your own safety, whatever you do, don't get out of your vehicle holding on to it and then putting your feet on the ground. So we want you to carefully get into a place where you can easily jump clear of the vehicle. So it's just a quick little hop. We don't want you to get crazy and go jumping and fall. You want to jump so that you land on your feet. And then, as Aurora pointed out, then you start the shuffle. So your feet go shuffling across the ground. And you want to do that again, like Aurora said, till you're about 10 meters away from the vehicle. And you should be good. So if you think about it, electricity traveling through the ground is very similar to the effect you would see if you throw a pebble into a pond, a very still pond, and you throw a pebble in, and you see those rings traveling away from where the pebble hit the water. That's exactly what electricity is doing. And as Aurora said, the further away you get, the safer you are. So always shuffle away from a damaged line. And if you're in a vehicle that has contacted or a power line is on it and somebody comes near, if you can open your window, tell them to stay at least 10 meters away from your vehicle.
Absolutely. Nope, those are great. That's a great tip there, Mark, and thanks for sharing that one. Definitely very important. Now, that's kind of what we have for our presentation today. Now, I think I'm gonna slightly change the order here because I want to tell you about the contest, but first, I want to make sure that if you have any questions, that we have time to answer them. So, does anyone have any questions about anything that we talked about today? Is there anything you want to know more about? Any safety tips that you have?
You call the fire department if there's a pole or something on your car.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd wanna call emergency services. So call 911, and the fire department might come to help. Well, they would probably come to help, and police and paramedics if you need them. So that's a great tip.
Also, Aurora, when you do call 911 and you tell them there's a power line involved, the 911 people will also call the local utility, because they have to come in and make it safe for the emergency services people as well. So they'll come and assist where they can until the power is guaranteed to be off, and then they'll come in and give you a hand.
That's cool. I learned something new today too. Thanks, Mark. All right. Anybody else have any questions or tips that you want to share? I see somebody said this has been interesting, so thank you. We really appreciate that. We're happy to be here today.
What's the difference between AC and DC?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm gonna attempt it, and then Mark, I might get you to try to explain it as well. But it's AC stands for alternating current. And that's the kind of electricity that comes out of your wall. That's the kind of electricity that comes through all those power lines. And alternating just means that it can change directions. So if it's traveling, towards your house, and something, this is why we need to be careful about making sure nothing touches the line. If something touches it, then it could move direction in the other way. Now, DC stands for direct current. That's our battery. And it only flows in one direction, only moves in one direction. That's why you have the little positive and negative on your battery. And that's why it matters what way you put a battery into the devices, because it will only work if everything's lined up. So the positive ions, and Mark was talking a little bit about that earlier, will always come from this end, and the negative ions will always come from this end. So that's essentially what it means. Mark, did that make sense?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
the other thing with alternating current is if you think about the ocean on a really windy day, you see waves. And alternating current travels in waves, and it travels so fast that when it gets to the end, it goes right back. So it's always alternating back and forth. So when you see the power lines, if you could picture it at lightning speed or faster, that power is going so fast back and forth between those lines. That's the alternating current. So it works on, I don't know if you've heard of the word, but it works on sine waves. So it works in hertz as well. So there's usually 60 hertz in the AC current sine waves.
That is
It's going
pretty
down the
cool.
rabbit hole a little bit for you.
No, I think that's pretty cool, and I'm sure there are a lot of people here who are better at science and math than I will ever be, who probably understood that.
And myself. I can talk about it, but I can't. I could never go much further than that right now.
I understand. All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, your uncle's an electrician, so he knows all about AC current, and he probably knows quite a bit about DC.
That's pretty cool. How many volts in an electric fence? Oh man. I don't know.
I do understand that it's low enough so it can't really hurt you because, as you know, it travels in amps. So it's probably based in milliamps and very low voltage. So it's probably going to be reduced to about 6 volts, between 6 and 12 volts, and then just a few milliamps so that it just goes pow and it scares whatever touches it away.
Amazing. Thank you.
But have you ever grabbed an electric fence?
I have accidentally hit one when I was younger. There was an angry horse that was running at me, and I tried to dive and I hit the fence, and it was not fun. It was very not fun.
It thumps pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it dangerous to be around a electric fence?
It's not so much dangerous for us because they do control the voltage and the amperage. But if you ever grab it, you're gonna get a pretty good pulse, and that's meant for the animals to stay where they're supposed to be, so they don't go crossing past those electric fences. So as long as they're set up for animals, they shouldn't hurt you.
Okay, thank you.
That's a really good question.
It is.
Yeah. What about anybody? Oh, somebody else also accidentally touched a fence with apparently a similar story to what I had. So that's not very fun.
The pig was chasing them.
I would also run away from a pig. So
Yeah.
all right. Anybody else? Any other final questions before I tell you about the exciting contest?
It was not fun. No, Beverly, it would not be fun.
No.
Contest.
Contest.
All right, vote for a contest.
Contest.
Contest. Okay, amazing. Well, in that case, it's contest time. So AltaLink is working with 4-H, and we're hosting a contest. We're asking for your help to keep others safe around power lines. So you're in the communications programs. So we know that you have great public speaking and presentation skills. So we're asking you, if you want, to film a 30 to 60-second video, which is talking about a safety topic for power lines and farming. Whatever you want, as long as it's related to electricity and farming, we would love to hear about it. So entering this contest, we'll give you a chance to win one of 4 $250 gift cards and some pretty cool stuff from us. We've got some neat toques and water bottles and that kind of stuff. So, there's also a chance your video will be featured on AltaLink's website and on social media. Yeah, question.
Where was it going to be hosted?
Do you mean when you upload, or like when you do the video, or when we share the winners?
Upload the video?
So there are going to be some instructions that get sent out to everyone who is here today. So there will be a little more information, but
Do we have to do it?
you don't have to do it. If you don't want to
I
do it,
want
you
the
don't have
money.
to.
I want the money.
It's a healthy competition. I love that. All right, amazing.
It gives me
Um,
something to do.
You know what? I like that.
My
Learning
mom can't get
and
mad at me that I don't do things.
All right, so we have one guaranteed entry. Who anybody else? Yeah, so you can film this video on a camera, on your phone, through your laptop web camera, whatever you're comfortable using. And then, like I said, there's going to be some information that gets sent out by 4-H with some more details about how to upload the video, get the video to us. We'll get you to answer a couple of questions like your name and what 4-H club you're a part of, and tell us a little bit about why safety matters to you. So I heard somebody ask, what does it actually happen? So it's gonna open, the contest will start on February 5th. So next Monday is when it's going to start.
Next Monday.
Yeah. And then you have all the way until March 15th to do your video. So you've got lots of time to plan. You can do your research. You can film a couple of different versions of the video and decide which one you like the best. Or you can wing it and do it all in one go on March 4th. Whatever works best for you. But you have lots of time to prepare. So does anybody have any questions about the contest? How long does the video have to be? 30 to 60 seconds. So half a minute to 1 minute. If you're a little bit longer than a minute, it's okay.
And just to confirm, because Aurora mentioned there will be additional information sent via email and shared via email, and we'll also send reminders through our social media and include it in our scoop. So there will be reminders, and if you ever have any questions about it, just reach out to development@4hab.com. That's the email that sent you the original link. And then we can double check and cross check with Aurora and Mark. And if there's any more questions, we'll make sure we answer you. But we'll send reminders so you don't miss the deadline. Sorry, Tyson.
How many solar panels can
Does it take to run a farm?
take to run a farm?
Well, that is a really, really good question, because there are a lot of different things to consider. There are different sizes of solar panels. There are the little ones you can get for your house, and those ones don't always, they're not a super high voltage or wattage for how much electricity is generated from them, and also what size is the farm. So that's a long way of saying I don't actually know, but I know that it would vary a lot depending on what type of solar panels you're using, where the solar panels are located and how much sun they're getting, and how much electricity you actually need to run a farm.
So has anybody ever seen the solar panels you can take out camping? If you've seen some of those,
Yeah.
there's some fairly large ones. And typically those are only going to power one electrical device at a time. And some are so small, they'll only charge your phone. So it really depends, as Aurora said, on the size of the panel and the amount of power you need basically in kilowatt hours. And if you've ever looked at a power bill, everything's expressed in kilowatt hours for the amount of electricity you have used. So there's a few calculations to work all that out. So she's very right. It's there's a little bit of work to figure that out for you.
Might be if you're planning on going into the 4-H communications competitions, maybe that would be a cool thing to look into. All right. Ah, I see. Yeah, you've got one on your RV. So yeah, that probably doesn't power a whole ton, but it just helps to, make sure you can charge your phone and stuff when you're camping. So, any other questions about the contest? Or anything else? Ah, sorry, Andrew, your name is coming up differently. I guess your parents probably set that up, hey? You're welcome for the presentation. Yeah, if you do have any other questions, Mark and I will be here for a couple minutes, but otherwise, thank you all so much for coming tonight and for having a really good conversation and asking lots of really good questions. I know I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Awesome. So everyone have a really good night.